The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 10th chapter. And Jesus said, "Whoever receives you receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. The one who receives a prophet because he is a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and the one who receives a righteous person because he is a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And whoever gives one of these little ones even a cup of cold water, because he is a disciple, truly I say to you, he will by no means lose his reward." The word of the Lord. You may be seated. Over the past few weeks, Matthew 10 has presented a rather bleak picture of discipleship. It has told us that following Jesus means letting go of everything, putting everything in second place. And the world has a way of trying to tempt us, either by making it seem like God is being unfair, or maybe instead by telling us that the things of this world are so much better. And so it can become problematic for us as we worry, as we hear Jesus' words of warning. One of the most important things that we learned in seminary are a few very, very important study habits. One of them is the fact that if you really want to know the Bible, I love commentaries. I love digging into the original languages. But I have to be honest, the best way, the easiest way for you to study the Bible is to go ahead and read the passage from Sunday and then read the entire chapter surrounding it. And go ahead and read the chapter before and the chapter afterwards. Only 3 chapters, but they're not like normal chapters, are they? They're fairly short. Because the context is what matters. Reading through those passages, we lose the context. Here in this passage, though, Jesus brings us back to the actual mission. Something that gets lost in the shuffle. And as I was reading this, I saw all the different avenues that this could take. There's so much here. But I want to focus on one. One, because this is one that I struggle with, and I'm sure that you probably struggle with too, which is getting distracted, but just how big this mission is. Sometimes we lose perspective. And as I was doing this, it reminded me of what happened many, many years ago. I can't believe it's many, many years ago. I'm getting to be that age. When I first arrived here, my wife and her family went scuba diving, as is their way. There's a story there, but I won't keep you here too long. Suffice it to say, they are avid scuba divers. But they realized that there might be a problem when I got left behind while they went on their scuba diving trip. So they made up their mind to go ahead and let me take scuba diving lessons. They haven't cut the air tank off underwater yet, so I think I'm doing good. I can remember being in those lessons, though, sitting in that class. And I can remember one thing entering my mind. There are a million ways to die. And they go over every single possible worst-case scenario. You're listening there and you're dealing with what happens if your buddy runs out of air underwater. What happens if you run out of air? What happens if you run into someone who just panics and is in distress? And we went over every single permutation, every single kind of incident. And of course, as you sit there, night after night, you begin to ask yourself, why am I doing this in the first place? Why am I even here? It's not just love. This is not healthy. And I think a lot of us can fall into that habit with our discipleship. We hear Jesus' message from the past few weeks. Remember, those messages from the past few weeks were part of a longer sermon, a longer discussion he's having with his disciples. He wants them to understand what it is that they themselves are getting themselves into, and I bet they felt the same way I felt in that scuba diving class. Are you telling me all of the bad stuff that can happen? I'll lose my family, I'll lose my reputation, I may even lose my life. Why am I even here in the first place? But here is the payoff. This passage is the payoff. And in it, Jesus gives us 3 examples, 3 things that happen when we follow the gospel. We receive a prophet, we receive a righteous person, we receive the ability to pass this on, to pass the gospel on. To receive a prophet, a righteous person, and to pass the gospel along are the marks of discipleship. But they aren't the identity of the discipleship. That's what starts us off. Because Jesus grounds this whole thing here in a passage which, of course, is so easy to overlook. And if we overlook this passage, this first verse, then we miss everything that follows. Whoever receives you receives me. And whoever receives me receives him who sent me. This is the central piece. This is the lodestar, not just of this particular passage, not just of a religion, but of our entire relationship with God. You see, the world's religion, all of them are about you. What are you doing? What are you doing to earn God's favor? God doesn't like you very much. But if you just do these things, he might tolerate you. Now, they may say that directly or indirectly, but every one of the world's religions and philosophies boils down to that. What are you doing to make yourself right? But not the gospel. The gospel says, whoever receives me, that word receives, not whoever finds me, not whoever searches me out, not whoever does exactly everything that I tell you to do, then maybe, just maybe, you'll earn God's love. No, whoever receives me. You see, we're not on a mission for God. We're not on a mission for other people. God is on a mission for us. He is the one who stepped down from heaven. None of us can get there. None of us can get to the place where God is. So God has to roll up his sleeves, get himself dirty, come down here. And the way that we accept God is just that. We receive him. And so what follows then is the fulfillment of what Christ is offering. Whoever receives you receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. Now God is present, and God becomes present through us. How does that work? Well, the one who receives a prophet, because he is a prophet, will receive a prophet's reward. When we think of prophet, and I'm saying P-R-O-P-H-E-T, I can tell you what, autocorrect had a field day with that one. When we say prophet, what we think of often is a prognosticator. We think of someone who is wild-eyed. We think of someone who's predicting the future. But that's not what a prophet is. That's not what Jesus' disciples would have been. A prophet is one who shares what God's mission is, what God's plan is, what God's hope for us is. That is a prophet. Throughout the Old Testament, the prophets had come down to remind people that they were God's set-apart people, His holy people, not because of anything they did, but because God said, "You are my set-apart and holy people." God came down into the midst of their lives. They received the prophet's reward, not by anything they did, but by believing in the promises that the prophet had for them. Next, the one who receives a righteous person because he is a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. Friends, this should be the best news that you hear. Now, if you think of your own life and you think to yourself, I am not a righteous person. I know what I have done this week. I know how I have messed up, how I've dropped the ball. I've known how my temper flared at that inopportune moment. I know how I had that selfish thought. But Jesus' promise here is that if we receive the righteous one, we will receive the righteous one's reward. You see, His righteousness is enough. It's enough for me, it's enough for you, it's enough for everyone you meet. If we receive the righteous one, then we will be made right. And even better than this, you and I who have received this righteous one, this holy one, this person who is set apart by God because He was God, you and I have become righteous as well. And when people receive the message which you and I carry, the righteousness that you and I carry, which is the gospel, then they will receive that same reward. It's not fair. Don't think about it too much. All we have to go on are the promises of Christ, and they must be enough for you and I. And if His righteousness alone can atone for me and for you, then maybe, just maybe, it can atone for that neighbor next to you who receives the righteous person's reward. Finally, whoever gives one of these little ones even a cup of cold water because he is a disciple, truly, I say to you, he will by no means lose his reward. In the Gospel of Matthew, elsewhere in Matthew 25, we have the famous parable of the sheep and the goats. And this parable is not about doing good works to poor and downtrodden people. That doesn't emerge until the early 20th century, that reading. For most of church history, what that has spoken about is the fact that people see those bearing the gospel and how it's changed their lives, and maybe they can't quite get their minds around understanding just who this Jesus fellow is, but they see the effects that Jesus had in these people. And they go and they feed them, and they give them water, and they visit them when they're persecuted. And God says to them, whatever you have done to the least of these, my disciples, you have done to me. Here again, we see this. Before we get to Matthew 25, here in Matthew 10, we see this. Whoever gives one of these little ones, the disciples. Notice how again and again and again in the Bible, in the New Testament letters, especially in the letters of John, we hear little children referring to the disciples. Because we are. Next to Christ we are. And when those people in the world, the people that we've talked about earlier over the past few weeks, the people who shun Christians, the people who persecute Christians, the people who ruin our reputation, when those people turn around and instead hand us a cool cup of water, because not so much they can get to that point where they accept Jesus, but they're opening to that point, because they see the effects that Jesus has in the lives of His little children. When they see that, Jesus says, don't worry. There's a reward for them too. Faith is a gift. It's something we receive. And these passages here should free us. But if we don't have Christ at the center, they won't free us, will they? Because this all turns out to be work, because you have to be a prophet, you have to be a righteous one. You have to go ahead and hand out that cold water all the time to those around you. But if you see that you've received everything from Christ, then you're just handing over what He's first given you. And what He has is infinitely abundant. And you will never run out of Christ's prophetic words, of His righteousness, of His cool, refreshing water. And realizing this brings us right back to the hope of the gospel. The hope that can rescue us in the midst of those times when we are worried, when we hear about the problems that you and I will face, when we are sitting in a scuba class learning about all the different ways that things are going to go bad underneath the surface of the waves. What was funny is after I took that and I had to go open water certification, and I jumped into a spring in San Marcos, a spring-fed lake in San Marcos. You know what happened? None of those bad things happened. They were just warnings in case the bad stuff, the trials and tribulations of life could happen. Instead, all I saw was a wonderful world under the water, filled with the breath in my lungs that shouldn't be there. And down there, I was reminded of why I had decided to go through all of that in the first place. Your discipleship should be like that. There will be bad times, there will be struggles. But in the end, Christ promises that when we receive Him, we will by no means lose our reward. Amen.